Hi, I'm Susan. Today we're talking about steadiness of the mind, creating safety and connection. So the steadiness of the mind, there's many paths to come to steadiness of the mind in different teachings, but the path we're going to bring forward today is safety and connection. And you all shared some ideas, and I heard some real wisdom here in the room about what is it that makes me feel safe and connected. Because physiologically, when we don't feel safe, our bodies get ready to defend and become vigilant, right? Whether it's real or imagined, it's similar inside our brains. So we can be sitting there quite calm. I have done it myself, or I'm looking. If you were to look at me, you'd go, well, look at that meditator. Look how calm she is. And inside my mind might be going, what? So what we learn how to do is both turn inward and begin to calm and feel safe and pay attention to the external. And I think all of you referred to that in some form or another. Because if we're in danger in the moment externally, then concentrating on safety is a different feeling than if we're sitting here safe in our home or in our office and and it's all in the head. So it's not denying that sometimes you're in a situation of danger and have to get yourself safe first. So I did want to kind of lead with that. So let's assume that we're safe right here and now in this moment, and as you're listening to me. And then sometimes our systems can still go on alert. Look out, get safe, right? So being not safe, whether it's internal, imagined, or remembered, can create a whole ripple effect throughout the body. So we've talked about this, is the pupils dilate, the digestive system shuts down, all the blood flows to the arms and legs so they can get ready to run. And the adrenaline and cortisol drop into the body. So we're like, boom, your heart might race. The blood shows. If we were to pause in that moment and withdraw your blood, we can see. If we were to do an EKG or an MRI, we can see that the brain and the body are on fight, flight, freeze. And then we've added fawn, right, which is less kind of immediate. So, and I've talked before, and you've all heard me talk about how 60,000 years ago, our ancestors developed this capacity to find the danger, find the negativity. They call it a negativity bias. And that was developed to keep us safe. And it's not as helpful anymore, although in a moment of genuine external danger, it can be very helpful. So, but often the brain, which is based on perceptions of the world, gets us into trouble with its perception of safety. What I heard today from you was that you all have some awareness of when I don't trust and be fully relaxed or safe with someone or in a situation. I may need to pull back. I may need to leave. Someone said, maybe I have to go to the washroom and say, see you later, right? That's all real. But the cost of being vigilant, if you've experienced trauma, and of course, as we know, Gabriel Maté in The Myth of Normal, and his whole thing now is saying we've all experienced trauma in the West because of the innate sort of drive around, capitalism, more, that we can never kind of relax because we never have enough, we never are enough. So if we accept that truth that we've all experienced trauma, and it's a matter of where are we on the continuum at any moment, then sometimes our vigilance might kick in. And this can be very exhausting, very corrosive if we're anxious constantly. And I have spent quite a bit of my life, which is why I do this work, right? We teach what we need to learn. So we can have things like heart attacks from that vigilance, not to deny that there can be genetic links. And we can have relationships with others that are both safe, and we can also perceive those relationships as threatening, and they can genuinely be threatened, as one of you mentioned. So before we talk a little bit more about steadiness, I just wanted to acknowledge the pandemic as an example of what makes us unsafe. And, coming out of the last 2.5 years and then moving into this winter, where in Ontario, they're starting to say we're going to have to wear masks again. Probably soon that might happen, assuming Ford aligns with our medical practitioners. So that will put us into a higher level of vigilance, and we'll have to pay attention to not let that sweep in our bodies. And the whole RSVP, the respiratory, one of my acquaintances was diagnosed with RSV that she caught from her granddaughter, and she's got a lot of things. So having to wear masks, cleaning our hands, staying home, all those things have had some cost on our feelings of safety. Although, sometimes you really enjoy staying home again if you have the privilege of having enough money and not having to go out to work. So acknowledging the pandemic in the last 2.5 years and what that's done for us. So that's a good example, right, of feeling under constant threat. So let's shift our attention to what does it mean to be safe? And so what we're going to do is use an object of attention today over and over again to the breath. And we've done this before. So when we start, I'm going to ask you to sit with your attention at the nostrils, and we're going to use that again to bring us back, feeling the breath right here, that slight coolness as we inhale, the slight warmth. Because steadiness of the mind is about focus. And over time, as some of you have talked about, you've begun to create and develop a steady practice. So what they have found in neuroscience is that the anterior cingulate cortex is what lights up when we bring a steadiness in an object of attention. So each time we notice our attention has wandered, and how much have we done that, we come back. When we come back, the anterior cingulate cortex is the part that lights up. And with practice, we come back more easily and with less deliberate effort. So the part of our brain, when you're kind of maybe doing the dishes or wandering around the house, just kind of tidying up or something. And I've mentioned before about the default mode network, the part that kind of just goes, oh yeah, look I better clean the front of that TV, or those windows haven't been done, or what about that email I didn't finish to my friend, or, oh, I'll have to get to that plant. And, just as we wander around where we're going, boom, 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 we can have 2,000 thoughts a minute. And so we're selecting continually which thought we actually have. The default mode network in the brain lights up. So as we practice this, return back with a concentration and a steadiness, that shifts the neural networks to the anterior cingulate cortex. So you might go, who cares? You might be a kind of nerd like me and are kind of like, oh, that's interesting. So rather than just drifting from thing to thing, we're building our concentration. But what I wanted to talk about was 2 areas. When you really want to do something, you have a goal and aim, and you sort of work towards it. Say you're moving and you have to pack up the kitchen, pack up the bedroom, pack up the living room. So you've got a goal and an aim, and you're going through, Monday, I'm going to pack this room. And so you've got this goal that you're working towards. So that's called top-down intention making in mindfulness. So that engages the prefrontal cortex, and it's very useful when we bring deliberation and control of our attention and emotion. If we're doing it internally, if you're trying to sort of clean house internally and bring your attention back over and over again, you can become willpower fatigued. So, plus the rewards are deferred. So that's part of what the socialization of a 2-year-old, for example, might be, continually to bring them back to this moment, because that takes a long time to develop. So that's one, top-down intention. And I'll mention that when we're doing our meditation. The second way in mindfulness that we talk about is bottom-up intention. And what's that? That's a way to engage our emotions and sensations. That's what we mostly do, right? Is a bottom-up practice, because it draws on much older neural structures than the prefrontal cortex, which is a more recent. So then you have a felt sense of, it's a kind of immediate response. Your whole body kind of feels it. So we've done both. And today I'm going to use both again. I'm going to name them. So if you're not interested in that, just let it slide by like a cloud. If you're interested, that's what it feels like to do a top down, and that's what it feels like a bottom up. Just kind of notice it as I mention it. And of course, before we begin, I'm going to add about the central nervous system. So I think you're all familiar with the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic is the one that gets alert. It's a stress response. It triggers the cortisol and adrenaline, and it makes our attention jump around. So like the default mode network, which is being lit up, the central nervous system is also being lit up. So if you come across an emergency somewhere, if you're driving along and there's an accident that happens right in front of you, you get all that kind of vigilant alert. If you experience acute trauma, that's kind of what gets lit up. Chronic trauma also can involve the central nervous system, or chronic stress. So what we want to do is we want to integrate more in the rest and digest, or the parasympathetic nervous system. And that part of our central nervous system involves calming, slowing the heart rate down, easing, relaxing, creating safety. So here we're coming back to safety and connection. So before we start our meditation today, what does it mean to feel safe and connected for you? So we're talking about steadiness of the mind, and we're talking about safety. So our mind-body connection, which is often disconnected, when we're connected, we can just feel more sense by having that connection. So just as I'm talking in this last minute or so, continually tune in to your body as you're listening with your ears and allowing my words to come to you, and staying attention to the thoughts and the mind as we're doing this. So if we're safe, which let's assume we all are right now we're all safe. We're in our homes on this Zoom, and let's assume that none of us are in imminent danger of anything happening. So you've got the four walls around you, and you're safe. So then now it's about turning inward. It's about feeling safe and connected inwardly, and really allowing yourself to know your own body and your own mind. We need to be safe for this to happen. If we're in an unsafe, dangerous situation, this kind of practice doesn't work, as I said at the beginning. And I'll just finish with knowing your own body's limits, what it can and can't do. That is part of the safe. When we overextend ourselves, when we do too much, we talked about doing too much as a violence recently. Hurrying as a form of violence to ourselves. And I'm sure we've all done it. And I know that I can still get swept up to it. Rush around. It's very tempting. So I think that's all I have for today.